All right, my name is Jordan Kelleher. I help people buy private small businesses and sell private small businesses. I have a background as a business broker. So today I want to do a review on a listing I found on bizscout.com just to show how, from a buyer's perspective, what to look for on an initial listing. Now, obviously, we don't have too much information because I haven't signed an NDA. Even if I did sign an NDA, that means I won't be able to share the information behind that wall, if you will, but just kind of dissecting the listing to see if it's worth pursuing or not. And then again, as I mentioned before, if you're a business owner yourself and you want to get ready to sell your business, you know, this is some good information to see how a buyer would look at your potential business listing, if you will. So again, we don't have too much information here because we haven't signed an NDA, but let's take a look at this listing just to kind of see if it's something that would be good to pursue. So this is a high revenue, or the listing name is a high revenue national healthcare staffing agency virtual office in Arizona. A couple things just with this industry. I like this industry from my experience working as a business broker. We sold a lot of staffing companies that are actually in very high demand. As you can imagine, people are always looking for jobs. And so they utilize staffing agencies, and the healthcare industry is a really good industry, high demand industry that people are constantly trying to get into and placing different candidates in different positions in the healthcare industry. So healthcare was a big one. IT was probably the biggest one as far as demand, what people are looking for buyers. So I will kind of get into this, but a good idea or a cool idea would be buying a staffing industry and rolling other staffing industries up into your current one, and maybe you diversify into the IT sector or other manufacturing sectors, or just staying in healthcare. But that would be a cool strategy to buy this one as your platform business, and then going and buying smaller staffing businesses, maybe in other industries that are in high demand. Like I said, the IT industry. But staffing industry is great. Healthcare industry is great. So I like this as far as an industry pick. They're asking $2,655,000 to buy this business. So going down here, looking at some rough numbers, they're advertising $426,000 as their cash flow, and that is also their advertised EBITDA, which is the business's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. So again, I say in a lot of my videos here, this is a good metric to measure the profitability of a business. They've got gross revenue of almost $3.5 million in sales, which is really good. And then how do we find out if this is listed properly, right? Is it too high? Is it too low? I think this is where a lot of people get mixed up, because it's not like real estate where an appraiser comes out, sets the price on the house, and it's usually going to be sold in that range of what the appraiser comes out, or market comps. So businesses are bought and sold for a multiple of what they earn. And so this is their earnings. So how do we apply a multiple to this, right? And so first of all, let's just check what the multiple is. I'll bring this over here. And we simply are going to take the purchase price, the 2655000, and we're going to divide it by the earnings, because businesses are bought and sold for a multiple of what they earn. So they're advertising, they're saying the business is earning this much money on an annual basis. So let's divide it by 426,667. And we can see they're using a multiple of 6.2. Now, I can tell you just from my background and experience, it seems to be a little bit on the high side. Now, everything's different. You tend to see the multiple creep up once this gets usually over $500,000, maybe closer to a million. So I think we're a little high. I think most small businesses of this size sell between a 2 and a 4. But again, as I mentioned, you can just do your research and find out what multiple do staffing companies sell for. And I've actually done that. So I typed it into Google just out of curiosity. Now, of course, there's other factors that come into play of like how long has this business been around for? What's the revenue trend? Right. So there's a few other things that come into play. But for the most part, you can get an idea of what staffing companies sell for, just some research. And so I went into Google and I typed it in. I said, what multiple do staffing companies sell for? Staffing companies typically sell for a multiple of their annual earnings, as I had mentioned, that EBITDA number, usually between 3.5 to 5.5 times their adjusted EBITDA. So you can see down here, now their adjusted EBITDA would be adding back any personal um, discretionary spendings, irregular spending, anything like that. Again, we haven't signed an NDA, so I don't know if they've put their ad backs in here or not, like the owner's car maybe, or meals and entertainment, um, personal phone, right? Any of those things, you can add those back, and that's why it's called an adjusted EBITDA, right? So I don't know if they've done that with this or not. I'm assuming they have because that usually will boost their purchase price a little bit. But we just ran this. The multiple is 6.2. We just Googled, did some research real quick, 3.5 to 5.5. So right off the bat, we're listed a little high. I could have figured that out pretty quickly. So we're listed a little bit high. That's fine. It still looks like a good business. They do a good amount of sales. They've got a good amount of earnings. So we're fine. We're just a little high. And if I want to buy this business, I would probably go into this knowing we're going to have to bring this purchase price down a little bit. And unfortunately, I think business brokers, it's a disservice to not set price expectations up front with your client, because now the client's got this 2.6 million in their head and they're excited and they're ready to sell, whether it's retirement or they want to go into a new adventure or a new venture with their money that they're going to get from this sale. I just think it's a disservice to set such high price expectations. Not if it's realistic, but if it's a little unrealistic. And in this case, I think asking 2.6 is a bit of a stretch. Now they might get it, sure, but I think it's a bit of a stretch. I think we're going to be bringing this down to maybe closer to a 4 multiple, right? Which 4 or a 5, which you can imagine drops that purchase price pretty significantly, unfortunately. But I'm going to imagine that that's what they're going to deal with in terms of buyers putting offer prices in. The multiple is it's too high, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean we don't want to pursue this business, because that's the whole point of buying and selling businesses. There's a negotiation point to this, right? And so if you can back up your offer price and justify it, then there you go, right? You can get that asking price. Now, obviously, you have to have the sellers on board. And again, this is where I think brokers, make mistakes with not setting the correct price expectation up front with their client. Because also, a little peek behind the curtain, if a buyer is going to buy this business, they're going to most likely use an SBA loan, and you can finance, or you can use up to $5 million with an SBA loan. Your cap is $5 million. Sorry, and so what the bank is going to do is they're going to underwrite this deal themselves, right? So this is something that the buyer should do with maybe help from a CPA or someone who understands how to do that, or a consultant, whatever. You should underwrite it yourself, but the bank's also going to underwrite it. And because what they're going to do is they're going to run a valuation on the business, right? Which is essentially the appraisal. They're going to figure out the price of what this business is worth. And they know all of this stuff. They know the multiples. They know how to find the earnings and the add backs, and they understand this. And my bet is they're going to come back and say, this is not 2.6. We're willing to lend this much money. So what they're saying is, it has to debt service a certain amount of money. And so if it's priced too high, it's not going to meet this threshold of debt service. And so the bank's going to come back and say, we're not going to lend 2.6. We're going to lend, 2 million or 1.8, right? Which unfortunately is a big chop to the purchase price, but that's just what the banks do. And if they're not going to finance 2.6, then that means the buyer can't buy the business. Therefore, they're going to have trouble selling this business if no one can get financing because it's priced too high. So again, I think this is where brokers can do a better job on. Okay, so going through the about section of this is a well-established company that has been a reliable player in the medical staffing industry for over 15 years. I love when businesses have been established for more than 10 years, so this is a really good sign. They specialize exclusively in permanent staffing solutions, which is a good business model. Now, I'd be curious if they're doing, how they're set up, if they're doing, just because I know a little bit about this industry, just because we've sold a few of them, is if it's, are they doing 50-50? So meaning, are they collecting 50% of their invoice up front and then 50% when they place a candidate? I know some businesses will collect 33% up front, 33% presenting a candidate, and then 33% when they actually hire that candidate. So I'd be curious what their business model is on this. The permanent placement is a good start, which means they're looking for permanent employees, not just like temp workers. So that's good that they're doing the permanent placement. Other key highlights: business model, low overhead. Yep. So this is run remote. It sounds like, which a lot of a good amount of staffing companies run remote because really all you need is like a LinkedIn subscription and just some work ethic to go out and find these candidates. And obviously, maybe some sales people or the sales aspect of it to go out and find clients that need placements for their company. So low overhead makes sense. Absentee ownership is a huge plus for a buyer. So the current owner spends approximately 5 hours per week on the business, primarily for meetings. This hands-off management style demonstrates the efficiency and self-sustaining nature of the business, making it attractive for new owners seeking a low involvement investment. They've nailed that on the head. This absentee owner aspect is a really good sign for buyers. And so basically just think of it like this. If you wanted to buy this business, the owner isn't working 40 hours a week placing candidates, right? So it's good that you should have a background in this industry. It's not necessary, but with the owner being absentee, it makes it even less necessary. Now, obviously, it'd be beneficial to have a background in this so you know how the operations work and maybe how to grow this business. But from an investment standpoint, that's a really good sign. And then, like they said, it's not reliant on the owner. So if you pull the owner out of this equation after they sell the business because they're no longer going to be there, what's going to happen with the business? Well, we know not much is going to change because they aren't really involved in it in the first place. So very good sign there. Permanent staffing. The company specializes in providing permanent staffing solutions for hospitals, nursing facilities, and private practices. All good there. Future prospects and investment potential. Robust, consistent demand, permanent staffing solutions. Yep, that's all good. There are opportunities to expand services and client reach, leveraging the strong foundation built over the years. Yeah, so I would look at this, and as far as like growth potential, I would look at this and go, okay, they are solely focused on the health industry. And I think that's a beautiful industry to focus on. If I were really trying to build up a monster of, what am I trying to think of? Portfolio, build this empire type of thing, I would look at this as my platform business, right? And I would buy this business and I would get maybe a year, 2, 3 years under my belt to get a good understanding of the operations of the business because I don't have a strong background in this industry. And I would get an understanding of how everything works. And then I would go look at roll-up opportunities, meaning you're just going to go buy another small business like this one. Now, you probably wouldn't buy something bigger. It would probably be equal to or less. And you would go out and you get another SBA loan and you would roll it up into this existing entity. But I would look at expanding into different industries, right? Maybe you just focus on healthcare and you just keep building up this healthcare staffing machine. But I would maybe go look at, like I was stating earlier, IT staffing companies or manufacturing staffing companies. And then you start to expand because you're covering different services, you're understanding how this is all working, right? And you're starting to build this big beast of a staffing company. And then in 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you can sell the entire business that you just rolled all these other acquisitions into as one exit. And you can sell for a higher multiple because, as I mentioned, that multiple businesses sell for a multiple of what they earn. Well, you're adding the bottom line earnings to this platform business by acquiring other smaller businesses and rolling them up. You're just increasing that bottom line. And so the more that bottom line increases, the higher the multiple will actually be also, right? And the the IT industry, if you're going to roll up an IT industry into this, that's probably the highest demand for staffing companies right now. That's just something that I personally know of right now, at the time of filming this. And so you could probably even demand a little bit higher of a multiple with just bringing that industry in also, right? So you could really exit, in 7, 8, 9, 10 years at a pretty good purchase price by doing some acquisitions and roll-ups to this business, to this platform business. This company represents a solid investment opportunity, yada, yada, yada. Listing broker is a family member to the owner. That might explain the high multiple and the high purchase price, right? Which is unfortunate because that's just going to be some tough conversations between all of them, unless someone comes in and buys it at a 6.2 multiple. But my bet is it's not going to happen. Established in 2006, like they said, they've been around for a while. That's very good. 17 employees is really good. We probably want to get a breakdown of who those employees are. Do they have department heads? Who runs the books? Who's HR? Who are recruiters? Who are the actual people working in the operations? We'd want to know that. Who's all staying with the business? This company is virtual with no physical office, so it can be operated from any state or location. That's another big plus. Transition time is negotiable, so that'd be like asking the owner to stay on time or stay for a certain amount of months to help you with the transition. It's totally reasonable to ask for a few months with that. Reason for selling is retiring. Always a good sign. Again, this baby boomer generation is starting to sell off, not knowing if this is baby boomers or not, but I'm assuming that it is. So I like everything I see on this listing other than the high asking price. And this down here kind of leads me to believe this was, yeah, I can sell your business. We can get 2.6 for it. Sure, let's try it, right? I think there's some tough conversations ahead regarding the purchase price. I think we're priced a little too high. I would probably try and get, you know, maybe right in the middle, a 4.5 instead of a 6.2. And so unfortunately that does drive this purchase price down a good amount, but that's just what they sell for, right? And again, everything's up for negotiation, but overall, this looks like a really good business in a really good industry. Owner absentee, they're making almost $3.5 million in sales. It's a remote business. Very good all around. If this was something I was looking for, I would definitely inquire on this, and you can address the purchase price issues later in the due diligence phase. So, I hope this helps. I hope this gives a little bit more of a perspective on how to kind of sift through some listings, how to find good listings, what to look for. The years of established. What is the multiple? Industry comes into play. How many employees are there? What's the owner dependency look like? So those are kind of some top things to look for when you're scrolling through some listings. And obviously, there's a long road ahead here to really analyze this business in more detail. But this should help if you're looking to buy a business, and if you're looking to sell your business, kind of keep these things in mind for what a buyer is looking for, right? I mean, the purchase price is probably the biggest red flag here. And so, it's just good to have those price expectations going into a deal, because it can be really deflating thinking you're getting 2.6 and then 6 months down the line, you're sitting at the closing table and you only have 2 million, right? It can kind of be a tough pill to swallow at some point. So really want to make sure your broker is putting the correct price expectations up front on the table. So let me know if you have any questions on this in particular, if you want me to do any other industries or businesses. But I appreciate you watching. Thank you.